How many people have been to the Catfish Conference? How many are new? Woo! Hey, all right. So we're going to have some fun today. Hopefully I can share some of my knowledge with y'all. I'm going to be talking on fishing for trophy channel cats, not eaters, but the big guys. What is a channel cat's diet? This is trophy channel cats, remember that. So anything that they can eat, daggone it, live, I can't go there. Anything that they can eat, live, dead, or cold, seriously, most anything. Here are a few of their favorites: night crawlers, crayfish, crawdads, soft crawls, minnows. Everybody knows what a minnow is, right? Okay. Oh, that young man, you know what a minnow is? Okay, so guys like me that are as old as dirt never learned what a minnow was. We all call them minnows. So now, so we call them minnows, and it's the same as, I don't call a sandwich, I call it a sandwich. You know, so yeah, a sandwich. So they eat frogs, crickets, chicken livers, chubs, shad, skipjack, shrimp, Irish soap, hot dogs, CBSISJP. Oh boy. Everybody's looking like, oh, what is that? Anybody got any idea? Don't have a clue. All right. So I retired last year, and I worked 17 years with the pharmaceutical industry. And, you know, with the drugs, you know, some of those names are really, really long. So they taught us how to condense and enunciate words so that, you know, you wouldn't have to spell it out. So CBSISJP is chicken breast soaked in strawberry Jello powder. You know, it's a good bait. Works well on them. You know, it's red. You know, they think it's blood. You know, I drag that stuff along. So catata worms, cormorant poo. Say what? Say what? Yeah. How do you do that on a hook? Oh, you can't get it on a hook, but this old guy, okay, so there's a cormorant. Now this guy, just looking at this picture, this guy has an attitude. I can tell right now. These guys right here eat one thing and one thing only, that is shad, and they eat minnows. But what happens, they eat all day long. If anybody's ever seen these guys, they fly about that high off of a lake. And when they're in the water, it's really cool to watch them in the water, because when they are going after shad and any kind of bait, they are swimming the same way they fly. So it's, you know, they're just woof, all over everywhere. They're like skipjacks, they're just everywhere. When you get one of these caught in a cast net, it is not a fun thing to do. You know, it's just, they start stabbing at you, and you know, that beaks. It's sharp, it hurts when they hit you. But what I do is I keep an eye on where these guys go and what they're doing, because they are feeding on the bait that the catfish are feeding on. So, you know, I keep an eye on them. What happens is when they get up in trees and roost, and, you know, they lift their tail, and then boom, that hits the water, it's pure protein. Catfish come right up and they just start working that. So if you're along, you know, I'm always looking along banks and that for those guys right there. And I think later on as I'm going here, I'll touch more on that. So my favorite baits, these are my favorites for channel cats. Gizzard shad, number 1. Skipjack is number 2, and it's close to number 1. But I'm only using those skipjacks that are about that long and about as big as my thumb. You see them in the spring of the year. when they come to the dam. They're the first ones that come up. You know, John talked about, you know, the skipjack run to the dam. Well, these little guys show up first, and then skipjacks are cannibals. They come up second, and they're eating their own kind. You know, it's just, they don't care. They just hit them. So, but when I freeze these, and you can only use them one time. So I'll put like a dozen in a bag. I just freeze them, vacuum pack it, and then I just, you know, break it out. You're only going to get one use out of them because their tissues break down so quick. Chubs, great bait. I'm from Ohio. I'm from Springfield, Ohio. We have them in the creeks, and I think I forgot to. Okay, so there's a gizzard shad right there. There's your skipjack, and there's the chub that I like to use. I don't know if that's a name of it, but I call these bluebacks for obvious reasons. He's got a blue back. What I like to do with these is I like to hook them right through the mouth, right out the top of the head, cut the tail off, and they're still alive, still wiggling. Throw them out there, dragging along. So, rigs. My favorite is the Carolina rig with a float. Did I set one of them up? No. All right. So, Carolina rig, hang on, that is, it's got a weight, slides. This is running along the bottom, and the float is bringing it here. A lot of guys use the bobbers. This is a whisker seeker. It's one of my favorites for channel cats because it's got that prop on it. It creates noise, it creates vibration. They track it down. 6/0 hook, circle hook. Put a chunk of bait on there, you know, the shad, skipjack, and the chubs, put them right on there and just start dragging along. I'll get to that later. Double hook rig. It's got 2 hooks in line. there's one hook here and there's another hook. Using the same method. Sometimes I'll put a bobber in between the 2 hooks. Sometimes I don't put a bobber at all. If I'm fishing mud flats and stuff like that, I won't use a bobber because, you know, the bobber actually makes the bait ride up. And on mud flats, a lot of times they'll be hunkered down in the bottom. So I want to hit them in the head with the bait as I'm dragging them along. 3-way rig. Thank you. That I do know I had that. 3-way rig is just what it says. It's got a 3-way rig. This would go to your hook would, and yeah, you see I didn't put the hook on here. I have a history of getting hung up on one of these things, so no, there's no hook on it. Your hook would be right here. 3-way, the weight would be hanging down off of here. This part goes to your main line. One of the things when you're using a 3-way is make sure that the weight is going to the pole on your 3-way. And so you can see how that it may not be easy to see. It is for me because it's right here. But weight's down here, bait's trailing back here. That's a 3-way rig. Kirby rig. I named this, I had never seen this before until last year when I fished with a very good friend of mine. His name's Joey Kirby. And he showed me this rig, and I have caught more fish, especially channel cats, but more so blues and flatheads on this rig alone. This, I think originally this is a trout rig, what they call a noisy trout rig that they use down in Florida. Well, Joey bought a bunch of these, and then he started experimenting. And what I do is I run about a 24 to 18 inch hook on it. Main line goes attached to this. This thing goes along, but it's the one kind of cool part about it, it's got a weight on it. So a lot of times this thing will ride. And what's nice about this rig is it has a tendency of riding right over top of trees. You can throw this thing right into a tree and it will almost always work its way out. I mean, you know, and so I nicknamed it, I called it the Kirby rig. So, and Joey's been selling these things like crazy, but this is an awesome, awesome rig here. Yep, tie that right to your main line. No weight then, or? No, the weight's in front. The weight would be like on that three-way, yeah. Yeah, I didn't have one of these. I was afraid I'd get stuck with one of these.
Three-way or Carolina, Rick?
Huh?
Three-way or Carolina?
Carolina with this one. Any other questions?
Put the weight over the top of it.
Yeah, the weight would, this has already got its weight because normally you fish this thing like that, like a regular bobber, you know. Now, did John say anything about this using skipjacks? Okay. He didn't give out one of the secrets, did he, Harley? Yeah. Okay, yeah. I use this to catch skipjacks too, behind a planer board. And what I'll end up doing is, I know it has nothing to do with channel cats, but I like to share information. John's probably going to shoot me for this. But I'll put a skipjack rig on a planer board, and then this will be at the very end of the rig. There'll be a Foley spoon connected to this. My skipjack rig's here, the planer board's up there. So this floats it, and it all is kind of sitting there going like that, and it just agitates them, and it comes after them. So, what's that?
Is that the kitchen sink rig?
Yeah, Harley wants to know if that's a kitchen sink rig. So, I don't know. That's going the wrong way. Okay, demon dragons. Everybody knows what a demon dragon is? Okay, they came out a few years ago. Scott Manning had the company. He sold the company. I think Tackle Bandits owns the rights to it now. I like the demon dragons, except for channel cats. I do a little bit of a twist. And as you can see right here, I've got a quick clip that's attached to the center. I'm going to get myself hung on this thing. So the demon dragon, I make it so I can move that demon dragon. So I wind the leader through the demon dragon, and you can move it all kinds of different ways, depending on what these fish are doing. If they're staying tight to the bottom, I move this demon dragon up close to the weight so it doesn't rise as much. Now the back hook will be trailing along, and hopefully it doesn't get hung up. And then, but if they're high in the water column, I take the demon dragon and I move it back here, and then that demon, the weight's down here, and the demon dragon's running along here. It can just kind of move back and forth like that. I really like these things. I've got some now that are 4.0s that are huge. I mean, and I didn't think a channel cat would even touch these things, but they will hit them hard. So next are the whisker seekers. I've been using whisker seekers for a long time. This is a whisker seeker right here. It's got its own built-in float. It's got rattles in it. And the biggest thing with the channel cats is it's got that prop. It creates vibration, it creates noise as you're dragging it along. You put your baits on it. Again, it's got these quick clips. I was a little apprehensive on these quick clips, but they're 250 pounds. I've never had a fish break one of them off or anything. So, and there's a lot of people that sell these quick clips, and I can change, if the channels, normally with the channels, I'm using 6/0 circle hooks. If I'm starting to catch 14-pound channels and above, I switch over to 8/0 circle hooks. It gives you a lot more to get a hold of them. Sometimes their mouths are so big that the 6 won't stick in there good. the 8 will. So that's another little bit of information on the whisker seekers. Okay, methods of fishing. My favorite method is planer boards. Boy, I am going to stick myself before it's over with.
Are there any other doctors?
Yeah, I may need Band-Aids before the day's over. So my favorite method is the offshore planer boards, dragging baits with it, suspending baits underneath of a planer board. If I look on my electronics and I see the fish are suspended off of the bottom, maybe 5 to 10 feet, I will put out, yeah, I'm not bleeding yet, but that's good, I like that. So I'll put out, you know, if I see they're 10 foot, you know, I bring out 10 foot of line on the planer board, hook the planer board up to it, drop it down, and run that planer board right into that zone right there. So a lot of people, most of the time I'm just taking the baits and I'm throwing them out. I hook the planer board up to it, put the planer board out there, just start dragging along. You know, and I run 2 planer boards. If I'm by myself, I'm only allowed to run 2 poles. So I try to get the grandkids, anybody. The ODNR frowns upon my dog running a pole, but you know, I don't push the deal on it, even though he's one of my kids. You know, so under a float, and when we're talking under a float, this is the kind of float that I like to use. I make my own, and all this is a pool noodle. This float here is about, I don't know, 18 years old. So, you know, you can't bust it. I've never had an issue with it, and it still works. But if you are working trees that are, you know, standing up, or even trees that are underneath the water, and you can figure out how deep those fish are, you can adjust it to where you want it, let it fire out there. If they don't want to take the bait, then all you have to do is just start reeling that float in a little bit at a time until you find that zone that they're in. So this is another one of my favorites. Yes, sir.
What's the plastic insert you got on your float?
Well, there's these, I don't think they're made anymore, but, see, I'm going to unhook myself here. These are closet rod ends, and they go inside of a metal, and I haven't been able to find them. So I seem to be the only one that still has these. So unless somebody comes up with a better idea, you know. But that's what those are. And there's a Wendy's plastic straw inside. So, and it's glued. So, you know, it's not, you can't crush this. I mean, I've seen the fish come up. I've caught flatheads, and I've seen them come up and have the back of the bobber in their mouth because, you know, they're chasing a bait. Yes, sir. I use circle hooks on everything. Yeah, because when they pull that float down, you know, it'll go down a couple of times and then boom, it's gone. On a big channel cat, you don't see a couple of times. It's just boom, it's gone. And what's kind of, I'm gonna get hung up, I know. What's kind of cool about it is, you know, you'll have lights. You know, all I did was drill a hole through it, and I put a Callan light in there, and it's really neat. The grandkids love it. They get to track it, and then when a big fish hits, you know, the water, it disappears, and then it's running under the water, and they're watching the glow. They'll let the fish run because, man, they're just eating it up. But yeah, it's kind of cool. When the big ones hit this thing right here, it's the same as doing a planer board. You know, in Jaws, when he took the barrel off and you saw the barrel going off, that's exactly what the water's rushing right over top of them. What else I got? Drifting, dead sticking. Okay, so drifting, some people call it dragging. where I saw Mark here earlier. I don't know what he calls it. I think maybe he might call it trolling. But what I'm doing is I'm taking the baits, I'm throwing them out behind the boat, and I'm drifting, dragging them along. That's one of my favorite ways to catch channel cats. Dead sticking is where the rod is in a rod holder, and it's out the side of the boat, and I drop the baits to the bottom and I crank them up so they're not dragging in the mud or on the structure, moving the boat along the whole time. But it gets really exciting because, you know, that rod's sitting out there, and then all of a sudden it's down, it's 4 or 5 eyes down into the water, which is, you know, grandkids love trying to get the rod out, so Grandpa has to, you know, help them get the rod. Oh, and even adults, you get a 20-pound channel that buries one of them rods, they're tough to get the rod out of the rod holder. Dragging using drift socks. Now I got. Hopefully I don't. Like I think it was Matt Jones when he come up here and talked. He said he wasn't an artist. Yeah, he's not an artist. He's a good talker, but he can't draw. And I am then no better than he is. But I will show you something that I found a picture on the web, and I'm not gonna. So, boat, okay. Shore, planer board, drift socks, okay? Got that? Everybody kind of understand what I'm doing here? Boat is moving, I'm already wrong. Planer board. Boat is moving that way. Wind is moving this way. Fish are 10 to 12 foot off of the banks. Most of your banks on reservoirs come out 20 foot, and there's like pea gravel and small rocks. A lot of times those fish want to run those areas chasing bait and stuff like that. Well, when the wind is blowing, the natural thing for the boat to do is to go to the bank. So if you have issues, put out drift socks on the windward side of the boat, and then you can drag all your baits right along that bank and stay right where that ledge is, and the boat will not move. You know, you're using a trolling motor, dragging the boat, dragging your baits. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm dragging using drift socks. And you can do that with suspending too, especially on both sides. If you got more than you can run. I have run as many as 4 planer boards per side on a boat. So it takes a little bit of work, and you got to have somebody who knows what they're doing, especially if you have 2 rods go down, or a miracle is 4 rods going down with that. Any questions?
So, if you're moving along the bank, the drift socks don't just trail, start to trail behind and
They will,
cause a problem.
but they're constantly pulling. So they're constantly pulling. So the back of the boat, the tendency for the boat is to go back that way. The drift socks keep it from doing that. This is an old walleye trick that those guys use. So. Rod actions. I like fast tips. And when we're talking about fast tips, please don't let me get hung here.
At least you got a band.
Yeah, I got a band. If I bury one of these circle hooks in my finger, though. Okay, so this is a fairly soft tip. Now on my long rod that I have right here behind me, it's got real soft tip. When we talk about the good backbone, that's this area right here, so that it'll set the hook. The other thing is, as you're dragging stuff along, you're gonna run into wood and stuff like that. This rod will load up, and then it'll pop up. And you know, especially if you're dragging through trees. When I fish Wheeler Lake and Wilson Lake in Alabama, I'm using heavier rods, but I drag through cedar trees, and cedar trees are like dragging over rough concrete. So you need a rod that'll give a little bit and then it'll pop up. Generally, if you're dragging baits through a tree, and what I've seen is the rod goes down where it gets caught on the tree, it pops up, and then boom, they hammer it because they're sitting right there by that tree. Channel cats love to be around wood. So, you know, you just kind of got to use a combination of dragging or floating and that kind of stuff. I think I forgot to, okay, one of the things I tried last year, I don't normally like to anchor fish. I have to stay on the move. I don't know why. I guess when I was a young man, that's all we did. We anchored fished. But something I toyed with last year and I found out works real well. I normally do not anchor from the rear of the boat. But if I'm fishing for channel cats that are stuck to a shoreline and the wind is blowing into that shoreline, for several years, I went and was giving seminars, and I was telling people that fish the windward side of a shore. That pushes the bait to the bank. The fish are going to be in there. While I was doing that seminar, Bill Dance walked up. So I immediately got nervous as soon as I seen him. He's standing there watching me talk. So at the end of my seminar, you know, he walked up. I said, "What do you think, Bill?" He goes, "Pretty good, but," you know, oh, I hate to hear "but," especially from him. And he said, "You're 50% right." He said, "The wind doesn't move the shad. The wind moves the bait that the shad feed on. So zooplankton, algae, the wind pushes that bait. The shad come in behind that. They start feeding on that. And then, you know, here come the channel cats or blue cats, flathead. They come right in behind them." So, you know, that was a good lesson. You know, and I'm glad Bill didn't say, "Hey, you're wrong." You know, so short versus long on the poles. This is, and it's stuck. Okay, so this is one of my favorites, especially when I'm dragging lines that are straight out the back of the boat. So this is a 6500 reel. I don't know how much line it holds, but right now it's got braid on it. But when I throw this rod out the back, I run half of the spool off of it, half the spool of the line. So it is probably 150, maybe 200 feet, maybe farther than that behind the boat. What is nice about the long rod is the fact that it has a different angle because it is so long that as you drag through trees and stuff, it'll just kind of give, and it just literally lifts the bait and lifts the float right up and over top of the trees. So I use long rods when it comes to dragging straight back off the back of the boat. When I'm using the planer boards, I'm using the TWCs that are a little bit heavier to be used, and they'll still load up on the catfish. When it comes to the planer boards, I used offshores. On my planer boards, you see a right and a left? Okay, so I would tell my grandkids port and starboard. Grandkids don't understand what port and starboard is, you know. So I had to devise a way to teach them My grandkids, I've taught all my grandkids, they know how to put a planer board on. So all I have to do is throw the baits out, they handle the planer board. So what I ended up doing, you know, I told them right and left. Well, when you're looking at the back of a boat, the planer, what you think is the planer board on the right is over here. But what it is, what I taught my grandkids, this is the right, so that planer board over there, that's the right planer board, this is the left planer board. So a lot of times, a lot of people don't know how to use those planer boards, so that's how I teach them how to use a planer board. Right is on that side of the boat, left is on this side. Because the planer boards are designed so from the front of the boat, you know, so the right, if the boat's going that way, the right side's that way, left's on that side. Any questions? What?
Is your long rod a 10-foot rod?
Yes. He wants to know, is the long rod a 10-foot rod? Yes, it is 10 foot. And actually, it's a dipsy diver rod, is what it is. So it's used to pull them discs, I think, for the walleye guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
How long you had that rod, Doc?
Let's not go there. Yes, sir.
Noticed on your Carolina rig, you had a rattler between your receiver slide and your...
Yeah. Right here?
Yeah, right up top there. You like to do that?
Yep. Yeah. Noise, you know, this weight that would be hanging here, it'll sit here and bang. This thing will sit there and spin, and it don't take much for these to spin. I have done better since I started putting noise, especially on a Demon Dragon. There's something about the noise. You know, some people, Demon Dragons, they love them, they hate them. You know, not everything that, you know, I might do, what I might do may not work for everybody. So, question?
Do most people put those rattles down farther, or you have better luck up higher?
I do better up higher. Some people, I put them in front right there where that weight, so that weight will kind of bang into them. Some people put them down here. I don't know if I got, nope, I've always got them all in front. Yeah, because that one's right there. It's in front of the weight. Yes, sir.
With that improvised float made out of the pool wheel, if say you're fishing with your clicker or your spool disengaged with a certain hook, is that if you make a float like that, is that buoyant enough to at least partially set the hook while you're...
Yeah, it'll still set it, yeah. Because it takes a lot to bring one of these things down. You know, and this is a 3-ounce weight that's on the bottom of it because I want it standing up. I want that pool noodle standing up on it. Any other questions? Yes, sir?
You got any experience lighting Demon Dragons?
The what kind of Demon Dragon?
Demon Dragons have the light in them. When they hit the water, it lights up inside the bottom.
They make that?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's the 4.0. Has a LED light on it.
really?
I think they went away with it.
Oh, didn't know that. Never knew that. No, I have no experience. Yeah, I guess I better go talk to Nate. I've never had any experience with that. You know, I've got several sizes of Demon Dragons.
Do you feel that the collar makes a difference, or is it really not?
Well, okay, the question, do I feel the color makes a difference? Well, I got every color I think I got every color Demon Dragon has. But probably my favorite, and I'm not kidding you, is this hot pink. I've got one that has no more paint on it. You know, they have beat this thing to death. So this hot pink, it's one of my favorites. So I don't think the color makes that much a difference. I think a lot of it is the presentation and the bait that you have that you're putting on it. So. I'm sponsored by Rig Wrap, and this is their new rig pack, which is kind of cool. I was hoping Glenn would be here, but I told him I wouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. One of the things I like about this is because I fish for channel cats, blues, flatheads, so the blue bag is blues. You know, the yellow bag is channel cats. So Glenn said, "Oh man," he said, "people are going to start requesting blue versus yellow," and you know, I said, "Well, okay, you have to deal with that." But that's how I do it.
Blue is just the older version, right?
The blue one, yeah, the blue one is the original. Yeah, the yellow just came out, I think maybe last year. So the rig pack just came out. So it's nice. I mean, this thing, it's sweet. I like it. So I can just carry so much more stuff.
We don't take enough stuff already.
No, I know, yeah. And I got a small boat now. So I have to be very cautious about how much weight I actually put in my boat. Any other questions? Yes?
What's the weight on the small planter board?
How much weight? There's two different sizes offshore planter boards.
Okay.
Which size should you use?
Okay, if you're fishing for channel cats, this is the board that you want to use. You can suspend a maximum of 8 ounces under this board. That's a max. If you want, let's see if I put it in my bag. Bingo, the big board. This, I'm fishing with blues, for blues and flatheads. With this board will suspend 20 ounces of weight and a big skipjack head. So, but I mainly use this on blues and flatheads. So, and you know, I'm big on catching big flatheads, big blues, and I catch flatheads dragging baits. But I've got some of the biggest baits you have ever seen that are going, you can't throw them out the back. You got to drop them and then move the bait forward on them. They're that big. But a flathead, you know, most people say, well, a flathead won't chase down bait. Yeah, Tennessee River is known for flatheads chasing down baits. But this is the board I'm using on that. Channel cats, the other, and I don't have it, we've got a board called an Awesome Crappie board. It's a little tiny board. It's not very big. It's only about like that. And it is really good for catching channel cats, but you don't use any weight on it because it won't support a lot of weight. I think the most weight I've gotten on that thing is 3/8 of an ounce because it's designed to, you know, pull jigs and stuff like that. But I have modified mine to catch channel cats, especially if they're in real shallow water and they're working, you know, I can see their backs working. I'll run that little board, which is not very big. I wish I would have brought one with me, but it's only about that long, but it's a real stealthy type board. You know, you can slide it across over to the bank and they don't even know it's coming till the bait goes by them and then they go after it. Mini board, yeah, yep, that's it right there. Oh, you bought one, huh? Yeah. Have you got the one with the float on it? It's got a float that attaches, yeah, it's got a float on it. Yeah, that's it, right there. Yep. So, good board. What's nice about that board is you can buy one board and it can go either way because you can break it loose and put it in on the other side. So, but you know, if you're gonna fish, you might as well have two of them. So you got one that way and one that way.
What time of year is the best to target the trophy size?
The big channel cats. Soon as that water temperature gets up about 45 degrees, they start moving. They'll come in on those mud flats and stuff like that. Usually, what happens is in the spring when the sun starts coming out, it starts heating up the mud in the banks and rocks. That transmit heat, that brings the shad in, and then the channel cats will come in behind it. So, any other questions?
What's your personal best channel?
What's that?
What's your personal best channel?
My personal best channel came out of Rocky Fork Lake, 22 pounds. That's in Hillsboro, Ohio. And I caught it I caught it on, I think, this rod with a demon dragon. And the guy I was fishing with was, we had 4 rods out. We had a 16-pounder on his rod. I had a 10 on my rod on planer boards. And I looked over, that rod was down, and I thought it was hung. You know, I didn't pay no attention to it. And the next thing, I look over and the reel's sitting there going like this. And I looked at Daniel, I said, how fast are we going? And he goes, 0.4. I said, oh, that is not hung up. There's a fish on there. So, and by that time, I could see the spindle on the reel. And I thought, oh, boy, there's no way I'm going to get this fish in. But I did get him in. If you're dragging, drifting, and stuff like that, ideally stay under 0.5 until 0.5 miles an hour. So a half a mile an hour dragging baits. As the water warms up, when the water gets up to 80 degrees, man, I'm hauling. I'm moving them 1.5 miles. You know, they will run them down. You know, if they think that bait's getting away from them, they will chase them down at 1.5 miles. But you have to have warm water. You know, their metabolism is really gearing. They're fattening up and stuff like that.
I was saying it makes sense because they're chasing sheds.
Yeah, so like right now, you know, if I were out there fishing right now, I would be going at 0.2 to 0.3 mile an hour tops, dragging baits. If I get going faster, I just start throwing drift socks out, try to slow me down. I do have a 10-footer, a 10-foot drift sock. It's the Easterland that, you know, I can throw out the back. The only problem with it, you got to be in at least 10 foot of water or it's going to start dragging along the bottom and it's going to grab a stump or something like that. You know, now I can't get, like, a good friend of mine is a guide on Wheeler Lake. His name is Jason Bridges. He's tracking blues and flatheads, and he pulls the plug on the boat and starts filling the boat up with water so he can slow down. I can't, not happening with me. No, there's a reason that plug is in that boat. You know, it's just, but I have seen him do it. You know, I've looked over, oh, Jay, what are you doing? Yeah, we're standing about ankle deep of water, but I got the boat speed down. You know, he's got drift socks out there, so no, not going to happen with me. Any other questions? Yes, sir. How many on that? With a channel cat? 95% of the time, they will pulverize that thing. They will pass by this hook and they will nail that hook. Remember the pink, the hot pink one I was talking about? Yeah, that's the one that's got all the paint knocked off. Yeah, this is a trick that very few people know about.
We'll keep it a secret.
What? Oh, a Rocky Fork? Yeah. Yeah, because I don't think I think I'll be in Alabama. So I'll leave that with you. Oh yeah, y'all gonna be fishing that tournament down there. Yeah. So. Any other questions?
Do you use drifting weights? If so, what kind do you like to use?
Drifting weights? Well, I've got the structure snakes, but I build a lot of my own stuff. You know, so I go to the automobile places on the web that have the shrink tubing that are 6 inches long, and then I fill that full of lead, and then I make my own. So I forgot to pack the right bag when I packed bags to bring for this tournament, for this seminar. So, but this is a structure stake, really good. This thing will sneak right over top. They make, you know, everybody makes all kinds of dragon weights. Everybody say, well, this is the best dragon weight and stuff like that. The best dragon weight is the weight that doesn't get hung up on something. So I haven't been able to find that perfect weight, David, have you found? No, we lose these things, right? Yeah, so you just got to carry plenty of them. But I'm having a little more success rate with that Kirby rig because it has a tendency of trying to walk right over top of the stuff, so the weight is in front of it, but then the float, I got a feeling, is trying to pull that weight up off the bottom, and then it just kind of tumbles down. So most of the time, and you can see it when if you're on the rod, if you look at the rod tips, you can see what's going on by just watching that rod tip. It'll sit there and go like that. So now on the planer boards are awesome just for the fact that when a big channel cat hits one of these, most of the time what will happen is it'll back up. You'll see the board, and then it'll come back forward, and then it'll back up. A big channel cat, two things happen with a big channel cat. The board is here, and it's gone. I mean, it's gone. A really, really big channel cat, the board is here, and it's gone right there. I get excited when I see a board go straight down. I do some night fishing at night, only because my grandkids love to go out at night. As I've gotten older, I don't like to go out at night, but I like to take them out on the lakes. I won't fish the river at night unless I'm with somebody like Bink who can still see what's going on there. Me, I can't. Everything looks like I'm at night on a river. I think I'm coming up on a parked boat because I see the white lights are along the banks, and I freak out. But one of the lights that I use is, these are lightning bugs. Chubby Fish Outdoors, this is a great light. This light will burn 400 hours, easy. You know, I've tested them. They just seem to last forever. They got a little watch battery in them. And what I've done is I talked to Tracy the other day about this, but I just drilled a hole in here. This is a concrete anchor. You can just shove that down in there. It won't come out of there. And what's nice is if this board goes down, it gets caught in a tree, that it'll just sit there and bend, you know, like that. But the other trick that I did when I'm on the lakes, I put a green one on that side and a red one on this side, and everybody gets out of my way because they don't, what kind of boat is that coming down through there? You know, so you know, Tracy makes these in green and red, and man, it was like, you know, I go down through there, I'm catching fish, and these guys, you know how sound travels on the water? The guys are going, how big a boat is that? You know, and then I come by and, you jerk, you know, you done got my fish, you know, yeah. Now everybody's catching on to it because they've seen me do it. So, any other questions? One other thing. At some point in time, you're going to get hung up. I fish mainly with mono. A lot of the guys fish with braid. Doug Vaughn just came out with this, and it's called a snag stick. And normally I use a rubber hose, and I wrap it around the line, and then I just try to pull it. Well, the problem with it is it wants to whip off. With this snag stick, you just take the line and you wrap it around here, and then you put it in this little groove, and then you pull straight, and it pops that braid right off. Either it breaks it off, or it pops it off. You literally pull it, and then throw it. He's got a mounting thing that gets mounted on the boat, and this thing, it's got a detent ball on it, and it shoves right down on there, and it's not going anywhere. So you can mount this thing anywhere on your boat so you can grab it. I've used it for mono, but mono, don't be like this. Pull like that, because if it breaks, it's going to be like a whip, and I got marks on my arm where it's come back, and I mean, mono will lay wide open. I've never had the braid do that. But the mono, Doug just came out with this, and you know, it's been cold. I've been out in the garage trying this out, you know, pulling on mono. Yeah, well, I had a mark right here on my face a couple of weeks ago with 40-pound mono that came back and nailed me. So I told Doug, I said, yeah, you don't want to be looking at this stuff when you're using a snag stick. But this is a good product. Just came out on the market. I think Rip and Lips is where you can get this thing. So, any other questions?
What's the purpose of the little metal thing you're sticking in?
Here? Mount. You can mount this on the boat. Mount that on the boat and just shove that right there. It will not come off. So, because it's got that ball detent. Any other questions? Yes?
How old's that pole?
How old is which pole? All these poles. All right.
Don't keep after.
All right. Now, y'all know I'm old as dirt. So, this is for some of you, this rod right here came before its time. This is a Berkeley ECAT rod that was built by James Moyer back in 1989, I believe, and it sold back there for $100. Nobody in their right mind during that time would pay $100 for a rod except me. You know, I own 4 of these, and they're no longer made. St. Croix was probably the closest thing that came, but Jim came out with this rod back then. So most of my rods, I'll tell you what, my rods, my reels, oh, thank you, Roger. Most of my rods or reels are 20 years or older. You know, I use mainly Abu Garcia. I use lever drag. I use 7,000 lever drags when I'm fishing for blues and flatheads. 7,000 regular reels. Channel cats, I'm almost using all 6,500s. The one thing I do, because I'm always constantly fishing, always constantly changing rods, and you know, I've got several rods and reels. I've got numbers on all my reels. So if I'm out there in the field and I have a problem with a reel, I just bring out my telephone and reel number 12, the paw's stuck, it's not going right or left. And then when I get back home, I can fix that reel. I can take that reel out of service, grab one of my other reels. You know, I got plenty of spares. I think I got maybe 39, 40, but I got a bunch of reels. I got too many reels.
No such thing. No such thing.
Yeah, no such thing. But you know, and I service my own reels. You know, I break them down. I got schematics on all of them. So I spend maybe, it ends up being about 2 or 3 days that I do reel maintenance. So when it's cold and nasty outside and I can't get out and fish, or I can't get out and do something in the boat, then I work on reels. Yes, sir.
For the Swedish Yaboos, what sort do you recommend for parts?
What was the question?
If you are on repairs and maintenance on or reels on the Yaboos, where do you get parts from? Do you get them from Gear Fishing? Or do you get them from the website, or where do you get them?
Yeah, a website. I don't remember what my older ones, I've been getting them out of Canada. So, and then I got a buddy in Alabama that does reel repair that I can call, and he'll get me parts. He wants me to send him the reels. Not happening. Any other questions? All right, thanks. Hey, if you got any, you know, okay, I forgot something. Let me show you one other thing. I use circle hooks. I snell all my circle hooks. So everybody's always asking me, how do you do that? How do you snell a circle hook? See, I remembered, okay? So I'm gonna show you how to do this. I can show you how to do it after I'm done here if you want to see it using regular line. But this is how I do it. Generally, I have an 18 to 24 inch leader, and this is a shark hook, and it's easy for people to see how I do this. So what I do is I take the line, I bring it through the top of the hook, bring it out 4 to 5 inches. Bring the other end through the bottom and bring it to the shank of the hook, just like that. What this does, 2 purposes. Every hook that you see manufactured, if it's not welded at the eye, there's a little gap right there. Take a look at your hooks. When you lay this line down right there, that covers that gap. Okay? And then all you take, you've got this loop, you take this loop, and everybody told me, you know, don't go so fast. All right, so I'm used to doing it. So you just turn it, just like that. And you roll that. Usually I go 6, 7 times, and then grab this and pull it, and there it is. And it's all laid up. Them coils are, this isn't as good as monofilament, but it shows you. Now, what happens is, now you've got this line, the way that line's on the inside, so when a channel cat grabs it, or a blue or a flathead grabs it, you know, it automatically, when it pulls, it's gonna roll right in his mouth every time. So it's kind of, you know, I tell a lot of people, you're loading it up when you tie it that way. But if anybody wants to see how it's done using monofilament, come up here afterwards. I'll show you how to do it. Any other questions? Thanks for coming out. Thanks for listening to me.